We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday, and we have Eric with us today. I always look forward to having Eric on the show because I always learn some shit. Eric is, to my loudmouth persona, he's kind of the mad scientist in the sense that he knows all the details and the specifics about it. So I can give you the big picture outlook, and he can define and explain what's going on. So how you been doing, Eric?
Been doing pretty good. Trying to dig through all of this, and I'm not surprised that the one thing that has been attached to Donald Trump and won't go away is Jeffrey Epstein. And I wish we would have thought of this during his first term. Um, and maybe it would have worked and he never would have gotten a second. I don't know. But they're desperate to do anything to get away from this. Nothing they are doing is working. And ultimately, this may be the one thing that causes the Republicans to have to step away and go, okay, we got to remove him. Go with J.D. Vance. At least he's not connected to Epstein. And maybe we have a chance to get reelected.
Well, that's it. That's interesting. People are talking about the last 4 years regarding Jeffrey Epstein, and the Democrats have been kind of, they haven't really been looking into it. I think the reason it's sticking is because it's the Republicans themselves that have been making all these claims and how the Democrats are going to go down, and everybody was excited about the prospect of taking the Democrats down. But when they get the opportunity, they say, yeah, nothing here. So to them, that seems suspicious, a little guilty, and I think that's justifiable.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like I've said in your lives, and I think maybe even the last time I was on the podcast, they have been told for so long the most vile and heinous things about Democrats. They are convinced Democrats are the only people going to be on this list. And now that it's not getting released, they're like, what the hell? You promised us we were going to go after all these Democrats. We want to go after Clinton and we want to go after this person and that person. They're all going to be on there. But beyond that, Hawk made a good point. I just saw a TikTok not long before we got on this Zoom call that he pointed out the only people calling for the Epstein list, like you said, are Republicans. But beyond that, at every step of the game, Donald Trump has been the one, and his administration has been the one fucking it up by continuing to bring it up. He talked about it going into the election. He ran on it as a campaign policy. Then, not long after Pam Bondi became Attorney General, she's like, well, the file's on my desk. I'm going to release it. And then it kind of went away. And then a while later, it came back out. Oh, there's nothing here. There's nothing in the files. We're not releasing them. Nobody had been asking about it till they said something. And
Right.
now that they brought it up, the Republicans are like, oh, fuck. Oh, yeah, the Epstein files. Release them. And they don't know what to do now. They fucked it up by even talking about it, which is typical Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's what I've always said. No matter what Donald Trump does, you can count on him fucking up ultimately. And Donald Trump himself, by like suing the Wall Street Journal. What he should have done is just let that slide and say nothing about it. And it may have gone away and maybe it wouldn't. But he had to get all butthurt about it and he had to file a lawsuit about it, which he won't follow through with because if he does, then he's going to have to give a deposition under oath and show some of his evidence, and they'll show some of their evidence. It's just not going to play well for them if he does that. But he can't help himself. If you hit him with something or he feels like he lost, he's got to come back and he's just ranting and raving. There is no thought process, it's just complete reaction.
Yeah, exactly. I did a video earlier that I think is going to be going up sometime soon, talking about this story out of CNN that Epstein was at Donald Trump's wedding in '93 to Marla Maples. And the point I made was Donald Trump could have gotten away from this super easy because Epstein's cover was he was a finance guy. He was big in financial circles. He goes, yeah, he was big in the financial circles. Of course I knew him. It was good business at that point to be connected to Epstein. I didn't know what he was into. Had no clue that he was into anything bad. The minute I did, I kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because apparently that's the story going around is that they kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep. If he would have said something like that, probably believable for at least a portion of this country and would have probably made him look okay until the files are released. But because he comes out and says, nope, fake news, hangs up on CNN, sues the Wall Street Journal for even saying that he knew Jeffrey Epstein well enough to send him a birthday card. Now, the birthday card in question is kind of hacky and it makes him look bad. But still, the whole thing is he could have said, yeah, I knew Epstein and walked away from it with a simple explanation. But he has to divert and distract because he can't even be connected because his ego won't let him.
Now, his ego won't let him. And the idea that he might say, well, I didn't know anything about this. There's one quote that flies in the face of that. He was interviewed by a magazine and said, yeah, I know Jeffrey Epstein. He's a terrific guy. He's like me. He likes beautiful women and he likes them on the young side. So he knew exactly what he was dealing with. In fact, we're seeing a lot of, and I like seeing this, and I know it's hard for them, but there's a lot of victims coming out and making statements about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all of that shit. So um, I think we're seeing a slow trickle of things coming out, and I wonder if some of the people, the wealthy people like the Rupert Murdochs, are getting sick of Donald Trump and they're slowly but surely cutting him with 1,000 paper cuts to ultimately get rid of him. I just get that sense.
I mean, probably. We're seeing his dementia flare up in real time with some of the stuff he says and does. His economic policies aren't helping this country.
Yeah.
It's costing everybody money. It's not making the wealthy people any money, even with the tax cuts, because they got to pay tariffs and then people aren't spending as much money and all of this. It wouldn't surprise me if they want to get rid of him and go with JD Vance. And for everybody saying JD's going to be worse, the big thing is, while some of the big picture things JD wants to do might be worse than Donald Trump, JD's at least smart enough to listen to people. If they tell him, hey, tariffs are a tax that the everyday person pays, and they can show him some evidence that backs it up, he's going to go, oh, tariffs are dumb. I'm not doing that. I'll look better for not doing it, and he'll walk away. Donald Trump goes, oh, tariffs are a great idea, and he won't back down from it. He's like a dog with a bone. They want JD Vance in there, if nothing more than they can at least reason with him and direct him in certain ways. Where Donald Trump, you can't do that.
Well, that's exactly right. Donald Trump is a wild card. He will do anything just because his feelings are hurt or because he wants to punch back. JD Vance may not be better ideologically than Donald Trump, but I'll give you an example, like with the big, beautiful bill and such. Everybody that voted for the big, beautiful bill knew that the vast majority of the country, especially their constituents, didn't like it. Donald Trump had enough clout or enough fear tactics to force people to do it. I don't think JD Vance has that stuff, that kind of thing. There's not going to be that loyalty from Republicans in Congress with JD Vance that they have, or the fear of JD Vance that they have with Donald Trump. So I think in that respect, Republicans may be able to push back a little bit if JD Vance is the president.
Oh yeah, probably. And like I said, they can talk to JD Vance and go, okay, this is actually really bad. This is, and he doesn't have the same sway over the base, whatever it is. Donald Trump comes out and, well, I'm going to primary you or whatever, and because they know that he can sick 30% of his voting base to vote for anybody else, and they may not survive a primary. JD Vance won't have that. But also, like we've been saying, you can explain things to JD Vance, so they may be able to go in and scale back some of the damage done from the one big beautiful bill, especially for like Medicare, Medicaid. So he would look like the hero going into 28. Wouldn't surprise me if they try it. Uh, like I said, and we've said JD Vance is going to be controllable a lot easier, and he won't be able to just throw any dumb shit at the wall and hope it sticks. You're going to see him go back to more traditional Republican ideology, I think.
Be honest with you, I think that JD Vance, if he was to run in 2028, that would be preferable for the Democrats. You still have the Trump stink on him. He's not as powerful or as charismatic as Donald Trump. He doesn't instill fear like Donald Trump. he may be the easiest people to beat on the Republican side come 2028. So let's make him president. Let's run this motherfucker through the ringer, make his life miserable, and watch him fail in 2028.
I think out of the names that I've heard for 28 for the Republican side, JD Vance, I think, is easily beatable. I've heard either Eric or Don Jr. Either one may try to run, also going to be
They'd be
easily beatable.
absolutely.
And I haven't heard many other names that have been able to get any sort of traction. You know, DeSantis doesn't really have the name recognition. Well, he does, but he didn't have any traction in the primary. Nikki Haley, they won't vote for her. Who's next other than those three? I can't think of anybody on the Republican side that wouldn't be a softball for Democrats to tee up against about, okay, where'd this guy come from? Maybe that's what Republicans try to do. If they don't run Vance, maybe they run somebody we've never heard of so that they're not tied to Donald Trump and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, you know, we have to get Donald Trump out of there first. And I think we're in the process of doing that. With regards to this Epstein thing, we are a little surprised that this is the one thing that appalls the Trumplafucks. But whatever, we got to jump on that bandwagon and shove it down their throat. But there were a couple of stories that came out today that are pretty important and pretty devastating to Donald Trump. First of all, the news comes out of the DOJ. It leaked out somehow. That's interesting in its own right. People are getting frustrated and they're going to start leaking stuff. They won't confront them directly, but they will leak stuff. And this leak said that the DOJ informed Donald Trump in May that he shows up multiple times in the Epstein files. Then shortly after that, Donald Trump has 1,000 FBI employees combing through that report and flagging any place his name comes up. Then we hear him go off and say Obama did this, and we'll talk more about that later, or Obama did that. This shows that Donald Trump knows very well he's in the report, and he's attempting a cover-up. And we know the crime is one thing, but the cover-up is what always gets you.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely trying to cover this thing up. I mean, he doesn't want the files released. Like I said just a little bit ago, if he came out and said, yeah, I knew Epstein, but when I found out what he was doing, I cut ties, would be entirely different than, what he's doing now. The cover up is always worse. Look at Watergate. It wasn't so much that that Nixon wiretapped the DNC. It was everything he did to cover up the fact that he wiretapped the DNC, where Republicans finally said, whoa, wait a minute, this is too much. You're making us look bad. And they cleaned up their own house. If we had Nixon era Republicans in Congress right now, Donald Trump wouldn't have made it to a second term. He wouldn't have made it through a first.
No question. Now, there was a second story that was just revealed on Lawrence O'Donnell's program on MSNBC just before we came on this podcast. And this one is going to cause some people spinning around, especially Donald Trump. Lawrence O'Donnell was talking about this birthday book that Ghislaine Maxwell made. And of course, we know about the page that Donald Trump is alleged to have written to Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump says it's fake news. It does not exist. It's a lie. It's a hoax. That's what he said. He's saying it doesn't exist. Well, Lawrence O'Donnell had a lawyer on tonight who represents a lot of the victims. And this lawyer said, look, that book exists. I know exactly where it is. There are two law firms that are handling the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. They have possession of that book. They're private people. They're not part of government. All you have to do is subpoena them, and they'll give you the fucking book. They have no reason not to give you the book. So the idea that and then Ro Khanna came on afterwards and go, oh shit, I'm going to bring that up. Can you imagine? And really, nothing in that birthday card said he did anything criminal. It's creepy. It's weird. It's some innuendo and that sort of thing. But there was nothing that would implicate him. But Donald Trump is so dead set on telling people that he wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein that this is going to drive him nuts. It's going to be interesting to see if Congress now subpoenas these two law firms for the actual book. And then what does Donald Trump do? Donnie, you said it didn't exist. Here this motherfucker is. This is the kind of stuff that's happened to Donnie. He's losing ground every fucking day.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that happen where they subpoena for this book, it shows up, and not only would you have Donald Trump and this birthday card, but you would at least have leads, depending on what the birthday cards are, from other people. If they're creepy like Donald Trump's, hey, maybe they had something to do with Epstein and the island. Now, like I said a little bit ago, just because somebody sent him a birthday card, he Epstein was big in the finance world at the time. Depending on what was out and what was publicly known, you could have some people that may have sent him a birthday card that are not, implicated in anything else he did other than just knowing the guy. But because Donald Trump is so desperate to keep this out of the public narrative, they definitely should subpoena for this book, bring it out, show it to the light of day, and then get Donald Trump in there, have him swear under oath whether or not that is his card, that is his signature. And hey, they got Clinton for perjury. Why not go ahead and get Donald Trump too? Sounds like an impeachment charge to me.
Well, it does. And I don't know if the Republicans will ever do that. They just have too much to lose at this point. But I think more importantly than giving a reason to impeach him, I've said this before. I think the real attack on Donald Trump is to keep undermining him, keep embarrassing him, and cause him further to spiral out of control. He says it doesn't exist. Oh, yeah, here it is, bitch. That's going to cause him to freak the fuck out. Now he's going to have to try to figure out a different way to spin out of this, and there is no way out. And that's when narcissists lose their shit.
Yeah, he'll try to divert, distract, but it wouldn't surprise me then if he's trying to get away from the Epstein thing, if he would inadvertently come out and say something that would implicate him with Elon in the
Exactly.
election or
Exactly.
something else illegal that he's done or whatever. Well, because he would be the type of person to say, well, really, this minor thing over here is the real thing you need to focus on. That's what they always do. Look at what they did with his health. Comes out that he's got swollen ankles and a bruised hand, and they say, well, it's a vein condition and he's taking aspirin because he's old and it's from rigorous handshaking that's causing the bruising. Well, I guarantee you that they are actually more severe problems from all the TikToks I'm seeing from people that work in the health industry. They're like, hey, we can't diagnose him specifically, but typically these things are indicators of other more serious problems. So if they're only saying these small things, what are they really hiding? And that's what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to bring up something small to try to get out of this big thing. And it's not going to work, but it's the one thing he's got left at this point.
Right. Most people in the medical industry, like on TikTok and stuff, that see this, they can't say for sure because they haven't been able to check him out or diagnose him. But they say it's signs of congenital heart failure. That's not hard to believe with a 79-year-old guy who's not in the best shape that eats McDonald's all day. That wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, he's not in the best of shape. There's no way he's 210. He's probably 310 or 315. I mean, just
Probably.
looking at him, you can tell he's way bigger than what he claims to be. He's got years of confirmed drug use and Adderall use and things like that. We know he's got other health issues that he is incontinent and all of these things. Um, it wouldn't surprise me if he has massive heart issues along with dementia issues and definite cognitive issues. When you hear some of the bullshit he comes up with, he just throws shit out into the ether and knows that people are going to just cheer because he says whatever.
It's funny whenever Donald Trump, over the past several years, whenever he comes out and he lies, makes a bad decision, looks stupid, he always comes out confident and cocky. And people have to understand that that's all a ruse because narcissists are typically insecure. They know they're fucking idiots and they're just speaking loud and trying to cover it up. But as of late, as things have been presented to him, he doesn't appear as cocky or as confident as he once was. He seems more in a desperation mode. And I think a perfect example of that is his attempt to deflect off of Jeffrey Epstein is to suggest that Barack Obama committed some crimes. Now, Barack Obama left office in 2016, right? Donald Trump was in office for 4 years after Barack Obama left. Why was there no investigations? Well, there was some investigations, and they found out it was all bullshit, as we expected with Donald Trump. But why didn't he charge him? Why didn't he prosecute him? And now he brings it up again out of nowhere. What that has to do with anything, I don't know, other than hopefully a distraction for Donald Trump. But if I was talking to Donald Trump or anybody in the Republican Party, I would say whether Barack Obama did something or not that was illegal, it's kind of a moot point, isn't it? Because of Donnie Trump, he has immunity. He's a former president. What are you going to prosecute him with? He has fucking immunity. You set it up. You got it for Donnie. It's not just for Donnie, it's for all presidents. Biden, Obama, Clinton, all this shit.
Yeah, exactly. The immunity decision does work for former President Obama. And not only that, but in that immunity decision, the Supreme Court also said that, hey, they have immunity from official acts. Okay, cool. But you also cannot look at their motivations for those official acts. So this all is around the idea that there are some intelligence documents that was looking into the 2016 election, and that ahead of time they said that there was no connection between the Trump campaign and Russia to influence the election. And afterward, these documents still say there's no connection between the two, but that Russia was acting to help get Donald Trump elected. It doesn't say that they were doing it because they were getting paid by Trump or that they were definitely connected, just that they preferred Donald Trump to be elected over Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Well, the Republicans think there's some big thing to it. Well, if former President Obama did, tell the intelligence agencies to look into this, you still can't look into why he wanted it looked into, because the immunity decision comes up and says you can't look at his motivations. It's an official thing a president can do. He can have his intelligence agencies look into foreign countries, and it's legal. And Donald Trump and his team are too stupid to realize it.
Well, it's typical of them. They want all the pieces on their side, and they don't think ahead that it will apply to other people. All you Republicans that have given Donald Trump all this freedom and this power to do these things, in 2028, when there's a Democratic president, they're going to have that power too. If they want to exercise that power or misuse that power, they're going to be able to do it. And you fucking Republicans aren't going to be able to do a goddamn thing about it.
Yeah, and they don't have the foresight. They also think that with some of the things Donald Trump is doing, for whatever reason, they think that because they think it's a good idea, that the American people are going to think it's a good idea and side with them, and that they're going to be a shoo-in for winning the midterms, that they're going to keep power in 28. They don't have the foresight to see how bad all of this is going to be. I keep saying, if the Democrats play their cards right and they run the right types of candidates, they could be in power for 20 years, but it might take the full 20 to fix everything that the Republicans have fucked up.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the distractions that Donald Trump wants to employ, and I'm not so sure if he thought it would work or he would hope it didn't work, but he was trying to give the mouth breathing, red meat eating a bone. Not red meat, but a bone. And what he wanted to do is push Pam Bondi to get the transcripts of the grand jury released. Now, the problem with that is only maybe 1% of the evidence. Maybe he thought that that it would be so little and they could scrub it or whatever. But Bondi, the powerful Bondi, went to the judge and said, I want the transcripts. And the judge said, fuck yourself. You don't get the transcripts. You can't have the transcripts because you were supposed to ask the victims how they felt about it, but you didn't. You might have an appeal with Ghislaine Maxwell, and you got to consider that too. So Donald Trump isn't going to get the transcripts to divert from. However, expect to hear this. Donald Trump will say, well, I tried to get the facts, but the woke court won't let us have it. That ain't going to work because the fact of the matter is the files are sitting on Pam Bondi's desk. You don't need to go to court to release that. You just fucking send it out. But Donald Trump will take anything to try to divert or deflect.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's going to blame the radical left-leaning judges. Doesn't matter who appointed the judges or anything like that. Anytime the courts side against Donald Trump, it's not that he's doing something the wrong way or illegal or whatever. He wants to blame the judges for being activists or what have you. It's ridiculous. But right, the judge did say that you don't get the files yet. Didn't say you're not going to get them at all, just that there's a process here. You need to supply us more information about why you need them. We need to have proof that you talked to the victims, and we need answers from Ghislaine Maxwell about her potential appeal. And that kicked the can down the road to like mid-August so far. Now, hopefully, Donald Trump is hoping that by saying, well, the judge has delayed it till August, will be enough to get his base and the MAGAs that want the Epstein files released off their back. But I don't think it's going to work. They want them out. They want them out yesterday because, as we've said, they're convinced it's all Democrats. And why wouldn't they be released if they can take all the Democrats down with them?
Right, right. Now, one of the things that's going on is that the House Oversight Committee, and I'm surprised by this, voted to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Donald Trump's team knew that was coming. By the way, those transcripts, I don't think Donald Trump really wants them released. He just wants to, he knows he was going to get caught short. I don't think he'll pursue it any further. He just want to say, it's all performance with him. I tried to get it, but they won't let me have it. And then he won't follow up with it because he doesn't want them released. Even if it's a small amount of evidence, there's going to be some evidence with him in it. And I don't think he wants that. But now the Oversight Committee says they're going to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell to speak in front of Congress. And she said, I'm open to doing that. Interestingly enough, Donald Trump, ahead of that, is sending out Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, supposedly this week. Don't you find that interesting?
Oh, yeah, probably trying to make sure that she doesn't mention Donald Trump even when directly asked. Now, Republicans aren't going to be the ones to be asking about Trump. You know, it's going to be the Democrats on the Oversight Committee doing all of the asking about Donald Trump. And it wouldn't surprise me if there is some kind of a backroom deal attempting to be made about a pardon if she conveniently forgets Donald Trump was part of any sort of a connection to Jeffrey Epstein. However, that's not how pardons work. Pardons only work if you completely there's no, since you can no longer be prosecuted for anything, you can't invoke the fifth anymore. You have to testify when asked questions under oath.
And if you don't testify, you can go back to fucking jail.
Right. For a different charge that you're not pardoned for. Donald Trump could fuck this all up for himself. It wouldn't surprise me because that's all Donald Trump does. He doesn't know how to actually win. He fails at every turn. And it's because he's desperate. He doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't know how to get away from this. And if he would have just, kept his mouth shut about Epstein on the campaign trail and left it alone, we probably wouldn't be here right now. But he thought he had a big gotcha. And yet again, he fucked everything up.
He did. I'm going to say something here that people are going to go, how could you say that? And my wife said that to me. How could you say that? And I said, you got to think about the long game. Some people think he's going to go in and offer Ghislaine Maxwell a pardon Now, if he's smart, he'll say, I'll give you the, yeah, I know that's a big shot. If he's smart, he say, you got to do this, this, and this. And then after the midterms, I'll give you a pardon. But Ghislaine Maxwell is smart and she knows better than to bet on fucking Donald Trump. If she's going to give something, she's going to want something now. And I told my wife this two things. I hope he pardons Ghislaine Maxwell, and I hope the files don't get released until after the 2026 elections. And the reason I say that is because I think we're getting more play out of this by this continuing to bubble under. And if he pardons Ghislaine Maxwell, that's going to get the Trump-fucks crazy. She's a convicted sex trafficker, a child sex trafficker. She was part and parcel to it. Secondly, in her case, she was also being convicted of perjury. So she's not good with the truth. But if he pardons her, that's going to explode in his face. The Republicans, the Trump-fucks, are going to be freaked out. And the more people don't see these files, the more they're going to want to see it and the more impact it will have in 2026.
Oh, yeah, you are definitely right. Pardoning her would be the biggest mistake Donald Trump could make, which is why I think he's probably going to do it.
Yeah.
You said if he's smart, he would float the pardon out till 2026, till after the midterms. But we know Donald Trump isn't smart. He's not. He's about a fifth grade intellect on almost everything. That's why his supporters cheer for him, because that's the way he speaks, that's the way he talks. You know, he doesn't know much, so they think he's a genius because he's on their level. But she would most definitely be able to play him. She's definitely smarter than he is, which again isn't saying much.
No.
And you're right. If this doesn't get released and they keep fucking around with it, or he pardons her, we can play this all the way into the midterms. But more importantly, and sooner than the midterms, we have the primaries for the midterms coming up. How many sitting Republicans are going to get primaried out over the Epstein files and them not getting released by other Republicans who run on a platform of releasing the Epstein list and everything else, which then opens seats up because now you don't have that familiar name recognition. And there are areas, especially ones that don't have straight ticket voting, where you have to actually look at the names. And if you don't recognize either name, there's a chance that Democrat could squeak in, or an independent who leans Democrat. This could blow up in the Republicans' faces bigger than anything else they've done, and way sooner than anything else they've done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the Democrats need to work this to their best advantage, but you could almost sit back. I don't want them to sit back and watch. They got to participate. They got to be in the middle of it. They've got to fight. But the Republicans, and this is the revelation I came up with. All these things we've tried to do to take down Donald Trump and the Republican Party, it's turning out what the answer is: let them take themselves down, because that's pretty much what's happening.
Yeah, we got to let them do their own thing. They're gonna burn the house down, you know, and then stand around and go, well, why'd you give me the match? I mean, seriously, that's what's happening here. The Democrats, they need to pour fuel on the fire, so to speak, but they don't have to do a lot. They just need to ask the right and pointed questions and just keep the narrative out there. The Republicans are doing it to themselves here, and it's working far better than anything the Democrats have come up with so far. So why not let it play out for as long as we possibly can? Because as they always say, don't stop your enemy when they're making mistakes.
Right. And what the Democrats really need to do is exactly what you and I have been doing for some time on TikTok and YouTube and stuff. Just stir the shit. Just stir the shit. Keep it in their face, keep it at the top of the narrative, and keep people talking about it. Now, one of the problems you have with Donald Trump when you have this scandal, and then we've got a long time to the election, people will forget about it. This is a different situation with Jeffrey Epstein's thing because if they don't get the files, they're going to be pissed off going into the 2026 election. But if they do come out, the information does come out. Donald Trump's been lying to them, and Donald Trump is implicated in some things. It's just going to explode the whole Republican Party. So Donald Trump is in a bad situation. He doesn't want the files to come out, but he's going to suffer because of that. If the files do come out, he'll be destroyed. So he's at that point where narcissists often find themselves in a corner with no way out. And he's starting to feel that pressure now.
Oh yeah, he's definitely feeling the pressure. But beyond that, when these files do get released, or if they do, and there are a lot of Republican leaning, conservative leaning people in there, like we expect there to be, um, and not it's not full of just Democrats. The Republican voters are going to be confused. They're going to be hurt. They are the fact. One of the creators I saw that was right leaning said one of the reasons why that this is the bridge too far is because they feel that they were personally lied to about the Epstein files, that they're not being
Right.
released.
Right.
Well, how are they going to feel when the Epstein files come out and it's not just Democrats and not nearly as many prominent Democrats as they want to believe? You know, I doubt Joe Biden's anywhere in those files, but they want to
No.
believe he is. You
Or
know,
Obama.
Clinton, or yeah, or Obama. Clinton might be, but we've always wondered about Clinton. And if he is, prosecute him. If the statute of limitations isn't up, prosecute him. Go for it. The thing is, we don't care. And when that happens and we're cheering for him being prosecuted, they're going to be so confused. They're not going to know what side is up. But there's nothing Donald Trump can do in this situation. He can't win. If he releases them, they're screwed. If he doesn't release them, they're screwed. If they release him, he's implicated and his ego can't take it. I mean, there is nothing he can do here. And if he resigns and walks away and JD Vance releases him, he's still screwed. He can't get out from this. There is
No,
no, I don't see a win here.
no, there is no win here. And that's, like I say, where narcissists always end up. They end up in a spot where they can't get out of it anymore. I would say this, and I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination, but most of these crimes took place in the 90s or the early 2000s. I would suspect that all of these are beyond the statute of limitations, because unless we're talking about murder or something, or unless there's a special consideration for uh, child abuse, I don't know that that's the case. But I don't know that prosecution is the biggest concern of people on these lists or in these documents, especially with Donald Trump. It's about the embarrassment. It's about being exposed. It's about the cancellation of people's legacies and their careers. They don't want to be embarrassed about them. And I know there's a lot of people on this list that are powerful and wealthy and all of that sort of shit. And they are terrified of this coming out. Movie stars, rock stars, politicians. If it comes out and there's any evidence that they were involved, they're fucking done. They're now pariahs in this country. They may not get prosecuted, but they're fucking done.
Good. I mean, they
Yeah.
should be. It's that's the way it really needs to happen. And I don't care which president you were talking about. Now, one of my personal favorites so far has been Bill Clinton, in part because of how he handled the economy. He had us going with a budget surplus right around the time when I was turning 18. I was really starting to get into politics. But if this comes out that he's part of it, I don't care what he did politically.
Yeah.
He goes way down on my list of favorite presidents because of his connection. And that's going to happen to a lot of people. You're going to see movie stars who aren't going to be able to get work anymore, which is the way it should be. Directors won't be able to get work. Politicians who will have to resign in disgrace. This is going to be huge, and nobody knows exactly what the fallout is going to be, but it is going to be massive, and it is going to shake up a lot of industries when it's all said and done.
Well, and the thing about it is it's almost a necessary event to happen. When I was listening to this lawyer of all these victims, They want some resolution to this. They want some accountability for this. We know that when Jeffrey Epstein was convicted the first time, he got some panty ass little sentence where he was in jail for 12 hours and got out for 12 hours, and he was convicted on some solicitation charges, prostitution charges, and nothing about his crimes against children. And a lot of those people that were the victims feel devastated by that because there's no accountability. These children were violated by Jeffrey Epstein and some others potentially, maybe even Donald Trump. There's a lot of people coming out and saying Donald Trump did some shit. There's been court cases that said Donald Trump has done some shit. So you got to take that under consideration. But then when Jeffrey Epstein goes to trial and gets convicted and gets this easy sentence, that's like violating these same victims over again, this time by the judicial system in this country. And there's got to be some resolution to this stuff. There's got to be some accountability in the end if these people that were abused want to find any closure to it.
Yeah, you're right. There's got to be some accountability, and ultimately they may end up having to get that from the court of public opinion. I mean, if the statute of limitations is up, and I know there are some special circumstances, some states do have extensions to the statute of limitations for criminal charges, for financial compensation. That's part of what happened with Donald Trump and the E. Jean Carroll case,
Right.
where he was able to, he had to go and defend himself in court, and they proved that it still happened. I realize that was in part because of the defamation claim that she had against him, but there's more to it. There's extenuating circumstances there. But beyond that, their retribution is going to come in the court of public opinion as, like I was just saying, politicians aren't going to be able to get reelected. Movie stars and directors aren't going to be able to get cast in anything else. And you may even see some of the movies that they were in start to disappear from streaming services as they don't want to be connected
Right.
to places like that. It reminds me of I used to be a big wrestling fan. And at one point during his run with Hogan Knows Best, Hulk Hogan made some uh, horrible comments. And there for a while, they scrubbed any mention of Hulk Hogan from the WWE's webpage, from their mentions in any of their videos, their video catalog, all of it. He was gone for quite a while because they didn't want to be associated with him. You're going to see
Right.
something similar with a lot of these people. And the court of public opinion is going to be where any retribution comes from.
Well, and you make a good point too. Over and above the criminal prosecutions, there certainly could be some civil lawsuits over this. This is going to cost people a lot of money. There's a lot of people with money and power that are in those documents that don't want to be exposed. And I've said that too. It's not just Donald Trump pushing to make sure this doesn't get exposed. I'm sure there's a lot of wealthy people going, oh, fuck, no, we're not going to do this. And we haven't even talked about the videos. Now we know there's videos. Some people say there's no videos. We know there's videos because when the FBI raided his place, they said there were videos. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if those videos exist. You can't really play them on TV because it's basically child porn, but those videos will be pretty damning to a lot of people. You can't say I didn't do it if you got a video of you doing it.
Right. The videos are going to be one hell of a bunch of damning evidence. But then the question comes out, okay, you got, and I'm guessing it's because it was Merrick Garland and he was, you know, a worthless attorney general. But why didn't the Biden administration and the DOJ under Biden, if they had all these videos, and I know there's probably statutes of limitations maybe involved, but why didn't they come out after some of these people during his, his administration? They probably should have if they could have. Again, don't know about statutes of limitations for things like that. But like you said, the videos are going to be the damning part of it. And unless they were videos just taken on the island in areas where, like hallways and things that just show them on the island, there's probably not a lot of it that's going to see the light of day because, like you said, it's effectively child porn.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there would be no point to have videos unless there were some videos showing crimes committed. You said something about Jeffrey Epstein being known in the financial world. Well, interesting you would say that because there's no evidence that he ever did any kind of trades or any kind of financial dealings. He was in the business of blackmail, and he was mentored by Donald Trump, who is in the same kind of business. We see it now. Um, there are videos, and things will leak out ultimately as this continues to fall apart. Um, and people should be nervous about this, but we should be thinking about the victims here. Everybody's protected these criminals, and nobody's protected the victims. And that time has to come when I've said before, you don't need the documents, you don't need the evidence if we just start believing women. I mean, you've got dozens and dozens and dozens of women that have said they've been violated, raped, or whatever. But in all those documents, do you see any other investigations or prosecutions of anybody that might be criminal, whether it be Donald Trump? There's been some attempts with Donald Trump, but he's shoved them down and pushed them away either by threats or by money. And you can bet it's the same with some of these other people. Prince Andrew, it was pretty clear he was in the process of being exposed, and that got shut down. Thank God, Mom is the Queen at the time, one of the richest people in the world. You don't know what's happening out there, but these victims and their testimonies have been suppressed. If we just stop allowing them to be suppressed and listen, I think we'd find out a lot of shit.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think they need to, after it's all said and done, Democrats need to come up with some new legislation. They need to change how crimes like this are handled. But more than that, like you said, in the court of public opinion, we need to just start believing the victims. But it's been that way for years, and it's not right that whenever a woman of any age comes forward and says something happened to her, one of the first questions you hear is, well, what were you wearing? Or you were
Yeah.
leading them on, or something like that. Oh, you really enjoyed it, but you're just having remorse. And we've got to figure out how to get that out of the public mindset. And I don't know if it's even in the majority anymore, but there's enough of that mindset around yet that makes believing the victims harder. And we've got to change that. We've got to make it so it's easier to believe victims, so that it's easier for them to get justice. And you're right. There were far too many powerful people that were protected in this. They need to be held accountable in some way, shape, or form. And I think ultimately they may end up having to take the brunt of it with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I want to bring up something. I like to give people some ammunition to argue with Trumplafucks when it comes up. And you brought up something very interesting. You said, well, why didn't Joe Biden release these videotapes or this information while he was in office? People have to understand Jeffrey Epstein was convicted, jailed, and killed or committed suicide while Donald Trump was president of the United States.
Yep.
By the time Joe Biden took office, that whole thing presumably was resolved. But why didn't Joe Biden release the tapes? Well, because Joe Biden is more a traditional president, keeping hands off the DOJ. It wasn't Biden that chose not to release this stuff. It would have been Merrick Garland, whoever was ahead of the DOJ. And we know how he's fucked up at this point. Now, Joe maybe could have gone in and said, you better release this stuff, but that's not how he does business because that's not the way a president is supposed to behave. They're supposed to be separate but equal branches of government. He did it the right way. Donald Trump is different. He's controlling the DOJ, which is hurting our democracy. So to blame Joe Biden for not releasing this stuff, you have to understand the circumstances. First and foremost, Donald Trump had the first and best opportunity to release this info. He chose not to. Joe Biden gets in office. He isn't controlling the DOJ. It was the DOJ that chose not to do that. Now, we had a lot of things we needed to clean up after Donald Trump was done. So they're presuming that whole issue is over because it's been adjudicated. He'd gone to jail and now he's dead. What more do you want to do on that? It wasn't the Democrats demanding that this evidence be revealed. It was the Republicans. And the Republicans had the opportunity when Donald Trump was president. Now they have the opportunity again. And guess what? They're saying, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So you can blame Joe Biden all you want, Republicans, but fuck you. You're the ones that have the opportunity.
Yeah, they did. They had the opportunity. They didn't. They chose not to release anything during the first administration. And like I said earlier in this podcast, if Donald Trump hadn't ran as a campaign promise and then kept talking about it 2, 3, 4 different times leading up to this point and just kind of let it go away, every time it's come back up in the narrative has been because of Donald Trump. He's the reason that people are talking about it. And now that it's become such a movement, now we can't get away from it. It's almost like he rolled a snowball uphill and now it's coming back down at him and he doesn't know what to do. Right. He caused the avalanche and he can't get out of the way. But Merrick Garland probably could have gone after people. Maybe he should have. But we see he chose not to, especially if there's a lot of political people on this list. He probably went hands off, said, well, that's politics. That's a political issue, even though there were crimes. And maybe he went hands off. He was an ineffective attorney general. He shouldn't have been around all 4 years like he was. And that is one thing Joe Biden screwed up on.
Yeah, he did.
One, appointing him in the first place. And two, when he realized he was that ineffective, not firing him and putting somebody else in who would be effective. But like you said, the DOJ is typically hands off, and you don't change attorney generals that often. You let them do their own thing. And that's how Biden wanted to handle things. But that is one thing I will say he screwed up on.
He did screw up on that. Merrick Garland was a joke as a attorney general, and I blame Merrick Garland in a big way as to why we are where we are now. Had he done his job, prosecuted Donald Trump would not have become president again. We wouldn't be going through this shit. But he was hands off. Oh, I don't want to look too political. By not looking political, he acted politically, and it was a failure. And you don't hear anything from Merrick Garland now, but I would love to see people cancel that motherfucker because he annoys me. I mean, I realize he's a respected jurist and all that kind of stuff, but he fucked up in a big way. And he didn't just fuck up a presidency, he fucked up this country.
Yeah, he did. He could have gone after Donald Trump. The evidence was there for January 6th and chose not to. He could have gone after sitting members of Congress, but he chose not to. He should be held accountable for it, if not criminally, because I don't know if there is any actual criminality there, but he needs to at least be held accountable in the court of public opinion. He needs to be called in to answer some questions, and people need to be asking why. Why did you choose not to do this? And he needs to go on record. It needs to go against his legacy. He shouldn't be remembered just for being a respected judge, because he was at the time. He was more of a moderate judge, and he was up for a Supreme Court nomination. But he shouldn't be remembered for the high points, because the low points caused a lot of damage and led us to be where we're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, over and above the Epstein thing, that's a thing that could take down the Republican Party. But they got some other issues too, like these tariffs. Donald Trump comes out and says he cut a great deal with Japan for the tariffs. And as people have looked at that tariff or that negotiation, turns out the deal we signed with Japan was worse than we had in the first place.
Yeah. Now, this $550 billion investment, I don't entirely understand what Donald Trump is talking about. The details aren't exactly clear. He says Japan's going to invest in $550 billion into American companies, and we're going to get 90% of the benefit. Don't know how any of that seems to work. Um,
Yeah, but the funny thing is, we keep hearing about these investments and this cut to waste and all that stuff, but it never seems to come back to the people, the people who paid the taxes that should be entitled to this. He loves to crow about how he saved this money or made this money, but we don't see it. Where does it go?
right. That's kind of what I was saying. I don't know where that 90% return on investment is going to come into play here. Beyond that, he's now saying, okay, all Japanese imports are going to have a 15% tariff. Okay, sounds better than the 25% he was threatening with.
Right,
But before Donald Trump was president, it was only 2%. It was under 2%, which
right.
means all goods coming from Japan that we want to buy, which is a lot of electronics, are going to be 13% more expensive under Donald Trump, and we pay the money to the federal government. It's not coming from Japan, but because he doesn't know or understand or care to learn how tariffs work and thinks he's some master negotiator, he negotiated us into a worse position than we were. And Japan just goes, oh, okay, you're going to give us, you guys are going to pay 15% more for the stuff than what you were paying before in a tax. You're not going to tax our cars, so we can still compete in the auto industry. And we have to agree to allow you to import a few more things into on our side of the deal. But that doesn't mean people are going to buy it. So what do we lose out of this deal? Why wouldn't they take it? But we also haven't heard for sure that Japan will actually sign it. It sounds like it's a tentative deal, but their prime minister said, yeah, we still got to review it before we sign it.
See, that's the deal. Donald Trump comes out and says, "We got a deal. We got a deal," and the deals never materialize. He's always jumping the gun, saying he's got a deal because he needs the immediate gratification, and then the deals don't happen. We're coming down to, as I say, nut cutting time when the pause on the tariffs that he put out there ends on August 1st. By the time you hear this, this is um, the 24th. So that means in 8 days, the pause on the tariffs come off. Now, he said 90 deals in 90 days, and that hasn't happened. The deals he said did happen haven't even really happened. So, what's going to happen on August 1? Is he going to put those tariffs in place or is he going to chicken out again?
Oh, he's probably going to back off again. He'll say, "Well, yeah, we've had great response, and all these countries are coming to the table, and we got negotiations going on all over the place. So we're going to give him another 90 days because then it looks like he's won something. The markets don't react horribly to the tariffs. I think somebody at least got him, you know, convinced enough to back off from implementing them fully because they will wreck everything." But this is ridiculous. Donald Trump keeps backing down, backing off. Nobody's holding him to task for it. And I think ultimately, after Donald Trump is out of office, it wouldn't surprise me if Congress goes through under Democrats and passes some change to the Tariff Control Act and takes the entire tariff power away from the president and puts it back with Congress where it's supposed to be. The only reason he can even do anything with tariffs, and it's only supposed to be temporary anyway,
Right.
is because Congress back in the 70s gave the president that much power to do it because they said it's easier for one person to negotiate and react to national crises and emergencies with tariffs than it is to get all of Congress to agree what to do with them. But I think they're now seeing that they fucked up. They didn't expect when they gave the president the ability to impose tariffs that we would get a dumb fuck like Donald Trump in, who is a toddler who doesn't understand how tariffs work. And he still believes that they're being paid by whichever country he's putting them on, that the money's coming out of their treasury and into our treasury, and that there is no cost increase to American consumers. And he thinks that any cost increase, the companies that take it should just absorb. He said that to Walmart. Well, don't raise your prices, just absorb the tariffs.
Yeah.
Like, what sense does that make from a supposed great businessman? If he was in the private sector and a president came and told him to do that, he'd say, go fuck yourself if he was a smart businessman. But we also know his track record with businesses. He was never a smart businessman.
No, no, I think people have to understand the whole point of tariffs. Now, I'm not a genius, I'm not an economic expert or anything, but when I understand what tariffs are, I understand what they're intended to do. Tariff is more a punishment than it is a moneymaker. For example, if something is made in Japan and we make it here and we put a tariff of 25% on Japan, then theoretically people will buy the American product first because it's cheaper. That's assuming it's cheaper in the first place or it's same price, which it probably isn't. That money is to dissuade people from going to Japan and buy in America. The problem with that is there's a lot of shit we buy that we don't make in America. And people will say, well, we'll start making it. Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to build a manufacturing firm in 20 days, 30 days? That's not going to happen. It's going to take years. So, in the process, you've got to buy a product that you can only get from these people that are tariffed at a higher price. And that higher price comes down the chain to you. You pay the price, and Donald Trump says, I'm a genius. I made all this money when all he fucking did is raise taxes.
Exactly. And it's a way you can raise taxes without raising taxes. And there's a section of this country that doesn't understand how it works, um, and just goes, okay, yeah, this makes sense. You know, Japan's paying the tariff or whatever. Um, you're right. Tariffs were designed to help boost American manufacturing when there's a comparative product. The problem is they don't work that way anymore, in part because there's not a comparative American product that's made here for in a lot of cases, or what is made here with Donald Trump using across the board tariffs on everything. Even the places that are making it here have to import the individual
Parts.
pieces from somewhere, and those are getting tariffed. So they have to still raise their prices. And then you add in capitalism on top of it and corporate greed on top of it. And say you have a product that is 100% made in America, all parts are made here, they don't bring anything else in, but it was already more expensive than the imported the imported counterpart. Some of these companies will sit there and go, oh, well, if the import is being taxed at or tariffed at 50%, I can raise the American product by 30 to 50%, and the price difference stays about the same. And the people that want to buy American will buy American at a higher price.
Right.
And they'll still buy, you know, that way I can sell about the same of both products like that I was before. Nobody knows the difference.
Yeah, the whole concept doesn't work in the first place. And when you uh, have the fact that these greedy fucks will take advantage of every situation, it's like every time there's a war in the Middle East, gas prices go up. They will take advantage of every situation because when it comes to pricing, when it comes to the stock market, it's all speculation. Oh, this is bad for us, so we got to raise the prices, or we got to drop the stock market or whatever. It's all speculation, and whether it happens or not, who knows? They're going to take advantage to their best advantage, regardless, and we end up paying the prices. Now, if you listen to Donald Trump, he's going out there saying, we got the hottest country in the world. Everything is going great. We've got no inflation. Prices are coming down. Now, that is categorically just a lie. Prices are going up. Inflation is going up by 2.8% last check. GDP is dropping like a rock. Consumer prices are up by 3% since he took office. You've got the price of gas going up. I noticed it today when I bought gas. The price of beef is going up. Everything's going up. And he's going to continue telling people that it's going down, even though these people are going into these stores and paying higher prices. I don't know how he thinks that's going to work in the long haul.
It won't work in the long haul. And I think ultimately you're going to see these prices have kind of a similar effect as the Epstein files. As
Yeah.
people are paying more and more and more, and Donald Trump is telling them, oh, well, prices are going down, they're going to eventually go, hey, wait a minute, we were lied to. We're
Yeah.
paying more money here. You're telling me I'm living better than I ever was, and I'm not. It's going to come back and bite him too. But it's going to be a slower burn than the other ones. It's going to take them a while to realize because they're convinced yet for the short term that it's going to only be a temporary increase in prices while Donald Trump gets all of his trade deals done. And then once he's done with all of his negotiations, everything's going to be so much cheaper because he made all these deals to lower prices because they don't understand how economy works, how international trade works. And I'm not even saying I'm an expert on it, but I know more than a lot of Trump supporters. Uh, they don't understand how interconnected everything is, but ultimately the higher prices are going to be another factor that Donald Trump is going to be getting hammered from for his base. And on gas prices, he's going to keep saying, "Oh, it's down to a buck 99." And for a while, they're going to believe that, well, clearly those prices just haven't hit my area yet.
Yeah.
But when they keep going up and up and up and up, eventually they're going to say, wait a minute. But it's all because they can always say, well, clearly it just hasn't hit me yet. So it's coming. And they're going to hold that hope for as long as possible, but it won't hold forever.
Well, if they are going to promise a downturn in prices, motherfucker better happen pretty quick. Because if it hasn't happened by the midterms, they're going to take a beating for it.
Oh, yeah. They're going to take a beating. And it's funny though, I don't hear the right-leaning creators screaming about, I can't afford my eggs. Eggs are so expensive. I don't hear them talking about the price of gas anymore. And when I do, like I said, they say, well, it's temporary. It's a good thing for the economy that it's high right now. They want to spin the narrative because they don't want to be wrong about Donald Trump, but they are still convinced that the decreases are coming. If they don't happen and the Democrats play their cards right, which they are horrible at messaging, they need to spin this against every Republican they run against in all races. Hey, Donnie said he was going to lower prices. Prices are going up. Inflation's up. People are having less spendable money. We need to do something in Congress to fix it. And that is going to be the thing that will help them win the midterms. And then they need to keep that energy going into 28 in the presidential race. They need to focus on going back to a simple message, take a page out of Donald Trump's playbook, talk at about a fifth, sixth grade level. You know, sometimes I think Democrats are too smart for their own good. They sound too intellectual, and they lose a big chunk of this country who don't understand what in the hell they're talking about. That's why they always said Kamala talked in a word salad, because they didn't understand the words she was using.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't that she wasn't speaking eloquently and intellectually, it was they didn't understand it, so they thought she was just making words up. Beyond that, they need to run on a New Deal style platform in 26 and 28, but a simple message and getting back to supporting everyday people and making sure people have the ability to make a livable wage, get fed, have health care, all of those things. And if they play their cards right, they can win, but they have to get the messaging down. And we know Democrats suck at messaging.
Let me ask you this, and I don't mean to, I'm not talking doomsday. I'm just trying to think ahead how Trumplafucks think and Republicans think. They know they're in trouble for the midterms. They know the economy is going to take a shit because of what Donald Trump has done. What if they just concede the House and the Senate, give it to the Democrats, knowing the economy is not going to come back, and then try to use that to blame the Democrats for the position they're in? I could see them playing that long game like that, because what's going to happen is the House and the Senate is going to try to pass good things, but Donald Trump's never going to sign off on it. So things will continue to deteriorate. Uh, am I just overthinking this shit too much?
I don't know if they're going to necessarily concede the House and the Senate, but what you're probably going to have is like here in Iowa, I've talked about it a lot. We haven't had confirmation that Joni Ernst, the junior senator from Iowa, is going to run for re-election. Now
Right.
she's in trouble because it was the one that came out and said at that town hall when people were saying, "Hey, I'm going to lose my Medicare." Oh, well, we're all going to die someday,
Yeah.
and seemed very callous about it. She knows she's in trouble. You have Kim Reynolds, my favorite governor, all sarcasm implied. She said she's not running for reelection. They might not concede, but they may concede by getting some people out of the way and letting other Republicans run and let the chips fall where they may. If they still get a Republican elected, cool. They will do what they can. If a Democrat takes over, they're going to say, well, yeah, Mike, you're probably right there. They're going to try to blame the Democrats if they have the House and the Senate. Well, Donald Trump just couldn't get his plan through because they blocked him at every turn. But if the economy keeps getting worse and worse, hopefully it doesn't, that blame the Democrats strategy doesn't work, because for some reason it worked. Blaming Biden worked in 2024 when Republicans had the House of Representatives and Biden couldn't do shit through Congress.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully the same holds true when Democrats have Congress and there's a Republican president. But, Republicans don't like to see things that way.
No, and the upside to the Democrats winning the House and the Senate is that Donald Trump can do very little damage at that point. Um, I think what the Democrats have to do if they win the House, they have to spend the next 2 years doing nothing but investigations and hearings and exposing the things from whether it be Jeffrey Epstein's thing. When I say concede the midterms, I got to think that there are some Republicans that have some intelligence. And the idea of passing the big, beautiful bill, given Medicaid is being affected and other things, and this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, and some of them getting behind exposing the Jeffrey Epstein thing, some might say that's a way of conceding the midterms because they got to know this is going to kill them in the midterms.
Well, I've done several TikToks talking about how they're terrified of the damage from the one big beautiful bill. You got JD Vance coming out and saying that it's actually good for children. You have Josh Hawley coming out trying to pass another piece of legislation scaling back the Medicaid cuts that was in the one big beautiful bill. He's like, no, we got to fix this. We got to pass more funding for Medicaid because this is going to be bad.
And
They
he
know,
voted for it, and he
but he
voted for it.
voted for the one big beautiful bill. And then after it passed, he's like, oh, fuck. I think what happened with the one big beautiful bill was their worst nightmare. The
Yeah.
House passed it by one vote. They kicked it to the Senate. They hoped the Senate was going to be smart enough to fix it, send it back, fixed so it didn't fuck them in the ass. And then the Senate makes it worse. And then Lisa Murkowski goes, well, I hope the House fixes it and sends it back to us because it's not done yet.
Yeah.
But she voted to pass it. And then the House turns around and goes, well, fuck, we sent it to the Senate once. They made it worse. If we send it back to them, are they going to make it even worse than this? Fuck, what do we do? Fuck it, we'll pass it as is and we'll try to figure out a way out of it later.
Well, and the thing about it is reason the House passed it is because Donald Trump was in the ears of all these people. He doesn't care what the fucking bill says. He just wanted the win. He needs that
Yep.
immediate gratification. He wanted the win and told them just fucking vote for it anyway, without any regard to how it's going to affect this country or the people in the country. And that's the mistake they've made. And when I say that they may be looking to concede the midterms, it may be inadvertent because they're so terrified of Donald Trump. They're just doing whatever he says. And it goes back to what we said before. Donald Trump always makes the wrong choices. He always fucks up. And he's taken down the Republican Party in the process.
Yeah. And part of their way of getting out of the way for the midterms is you have people that would be up for reelection who would normally run for reelection, but they get either they're against Donald Trump, so they're going like, hey, you know what? I'm going to vote against the one big beautiful bill, like Tom Tillis of South Carolina, North Carolina. It's one of the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Um, he gets flack from Donald Trump, then comes out the very next day and goes, "Yeah, I'm not seeking re-election anymore."
Right.
You have, like I said, Joni Ernst from Iowa here. She's on the fence about running for re-election. They're getting out of the way and not seeking re-election because of how bad this bill could be. Um, and that might be how they concede by getting out and just letting the chips fall where they may, so that way they're not attached to it anymore. As far as the individual people,
Well, they're trying to save
this
their legacy, maybe a little
you're
too
right.
late. They want to
Oh yeah,
separate themselves from all this bad shit, but too bad they're responsible for it.
right. But they're trying. They're desperate. They know it's going to hurt their states. Um, and when the but they one thing they put in this bill that we can't let people forget is that they delayed the implementation of some of the bad shit until 2027, 2028, 2029. So because they know that it's going to be bad, and I think they were worried that Democrats were going to get the House and the Senate, or one or the other, or both, in the midterms, and that, oh well, when the damage starts happening to rural hospitals and people start getting kicked off the Medicaid, they could say, well, Democrats have Congress. See, it's their fault. It's their fault. Unfortunately, there's only a small percentage of people in this country. Well, I say small, but it's like 30% that are dumb enough to believe that.
And the thing about it is that might work under normal situations, but I think the destruction that Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to do up until 2026 are going to be so devastating to a lot of people. They aren't going to forget. They aren't going to be able to be gaslit like that. They are going to be desperate before that time comes along. They may try to blame the Democrats, but we'll worry about that when the Democrats get the House. There's a lot of benefits for the Democrats getting the House. But what they're going to do to this country, as you said, may not only cost them the 2026 midterms, it could cost them power for 20 years. That's how bad what they're doing is going to affect this country. And I don't disagree with you. I think that's distinctly possible.
It will. The thing that we need to make sure people like us, because Democrats are also bad at messaging, we've talked about it a lot, is that we have to make sure people are level headed enough to know that, you know, let's say it is Kamala Harris or whoever the Democrat is that wins in 28, that January 20th, 2029, the minute they take the oath of office, it's not going to be like some switch gets flipped and everything gets better. The damage is deep. It is going to take, years and money. It is going to take time. It is not going to be a quick one-term solution, more than likely, because in some cases, as Donald Trump is trying to dismantle these government agencies, you're going to have to rebuild them from the ground up, start doing them over. It's going to take time and money and investment to get them functioning the way they were before. And some of them didn't function perfectly when they came into existence, but they had been around by this point for long enough. They had fixed the problems, and you're going to have some of those initial problems again because we have to start over.
Well, and honestly, some of those departments, rebuilding them from the ground up might make them better in the long run. The downside is the time in between now and the time it is actually rebuilt. We're going to have to deal with those situations. We're getting down toward the end, and I wanted to bring the Epstein thing up since we're talking about Congress. They want to pass some bill to force the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Pussy ass bitch Mike Johnson, what's he do? Yeah, we're just going to shut her down for 6 weeks and hopefully this shit will cool down. I don't think it will cool down. It made people more suspicious of the Republicans by doing this. It upset more people. And while they're gone, there's going to be more shit coming out and more problems because I don't think the Wall Street Journal is done. I think Rupert Murdoch is set on taking Donald Trump down, and I don't like Rupert Murdoch, but I will cheer him on in that respect. But here's the thing. These people in Congress think, oh, we're getting out of here. We're getting the heat off us. They got to go back to their districts. They got to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. They got to talk about high prices. They got to talk about the big, beautiful bill. I can't wait till we start hearing the town halls when they go back home over this next 6 weeks. It's going to be entertaining.
Oh yeah, the town halls are going to be good. I think a lot of them are going to get blindsided, especially perennial favorites. I'm expecting Chuck Grass to be blindsided if he does hold a town hall event because he's one of those people whose name is on a ballot. People have recognized him. He's been in office longer than I have been alive, and people go, "Oh yeah, Chuck Grassley. Oh, he does a good job." But they haven't looked into it now. But now that his votes are starting to fuck things up, now he's getting pushback and he's blindsided because he doesn't know what the fuck to do because he's never had that.
Right.
Um, they're going to have to go back and answer for this. I think what Mike Johnson was trying to do here is he bought them time. He was
Right.
trying to buy them 6 weeks to figure out a path forward. Whether this is Republicans meeting behind closed doors, going, "Hey, maybe this is where we finally have to cut ties. Do we finally invoke it and talk to JD Vance about invoking the 25th Amendment? Is there enough here that we can say, hey, you know what? He has committed high crimes and misdemeanors in the past. Do we impeach and remove? Would the Democrats be on board? Because we're going to need their help in the Senate." I think he's trying to buy time to strategize because they are so lost right now. They don't know what side is up. Nothing's working to get away from this. And every day it's getting worse and worse. And they needed some sort of a strategy time in here. And I think that's what they're trying to do with it.
Well, Congress is gone. They think they've got the heat off them for now. But Donald Trump is going to keep talking, and every time he gets riled up, he's going to say something stupid. We've talked about the 25th Amendment, about pushing Donald Trump out. We know that's typically a temporary fix, though. He could come back at some later date and try to work something out to get back in. I think the 25th Amendment works against the Republicans because his base will be angry with him. I think that an impeachment is the same thing. JD Vance will take the heat for it. Congress will take the heat for it from the 30% that are his base. I think there's only two options here for them, and one they have control over and one they don't. The one they don't have control over is Donald Trump choking on a Big Mac, keeling over in the Oval Office, and dying. Now, that's conceivable given his current health condition. But I think the other option is, and maybe what we're seeing with the likes of Rupert Murdoch and maybe some other oligarchs, destroy him, expose him, destroy everything about him so anybody who could even like him doesn't like him anymore. And then force him out that way, force him out with the pressure, cause him to resign or something like that. That would not cost them the Trump base if they were able to accomplish that. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of these people like Rupert Murdoch don't have some kind of plan to expose him, whether it be the Epstein files or some other shit.
Well, a couple things. First of all, with the 25th Amendment, it's only temporary uh, for a point. Like he gets one shot, basically. The way I understand it is if it's something that's recoverable from, and the vice president's like, hey, he's not capable of fulfilling his duties right now. I need to step in. Then the 25th Amendment can be applied and Donald Trump could come back if it was recoverable. But they can also use it and say, hey, he's not recovering from this. He's only going to get worse. His mental issues
Right.
are whatever. If Congress agrees by a 2/3 vote, he'd be out and he couldn't get back in until the next election. And I don't know if he could be voted in again because he was already elected twice. Um, Beyond that, impeachment would potentially could blow back on the Republicans' face because until he is completely destroyed, like you said, with the news media and making it so everybody hates him, uh, they may not want to take that route until they absolutely have to. But I don't think he's going to resign in disgrace. He will not pull a Nixon. I don't think his ego would let him do that. I don't think he would even, I don't even think if they gave him an out and said, hey, you know what? Tell him your health is worse than you thought, and you want to take the time to enjoy the rest of your days with your family. He won't take it because his ego won't let him be in poor health. The fact that
Agreed.
we know the little bit we know now, I think, is a distraction from a bigger health concern because they had to say something. They weren't able to get away from it anymore. So if Rupert Murdoch, the Wall Street Journal, and other prominent people are trying to take him down, I mean, maybe the only thing they're trying to do is spike up his blood pressure. So whatever uh, underlying health issue that he's having escalates, so that Big Mac does him in that much quicker.
Well, what I'm saying is if they expose him and they tear him down, they can then get away with impeaching him once they've
Maybe.
turned everybody against him. If they do that, then they can impeach him and not take as big a hit from the base, presumably. Now, I don't even know if that's true because that base is a bunch of dumb motherfuckers. They're going to stick with Donald Trump no matter what until he keels over, chokes, and shits his pants until he's gone.
And there is a segment of that base that even when that happens, they would be waiting to see if he comes back in 3 days.
Yeah, he's going to team up with JFK Jr. and come back to Dealey Plaza. No doubt, no doubt. But he's even got, because of this Jeffrey Epstein thing, he's got the one group of people that supported him against him now, and that's the QAnon people, the fucking real crazies in the Republican Party. They're upset about this. The other thing that they're saying too is, even though some of the Trumplafucks are still standing by him, there's another faction of people, the podcast bros like Joe Rogan and some of these other people that weren't dyed in the wool cult members, but were jumping on a bandwagon because they saw it was popular. They're now looking at this going, what the fuck? And it's becoming more popular to go against Donald Trump, as it always does with narcissists. Eventually, people start going against the narcissist, and then it's a big fucking dog pile after that because everybody gets on board ultimately. And I think we're heading toward that point. But he's not receiving the support that he was before, even though he says his polling is the best polling ever. It's the worst polling of any president at this point in their presidential term ever. But don't tell him that because he will never admit to that bullshit.
No, he's never going to admit to it. Everybody's turning against him. He's losing support from people that were crazy motherfuckers and would have sided with him through thick and thin. And now he doesn't know what to do. And the court of public opinion is going to go after him with this. But Jesus Christ, this of all things is the thing that takes him down. You know what? Whatever works, I guess.
Yeah, well, what's that old saying? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. The one thing I will say that henceforth, from here on out, during however long he lasts in office, it's going to be entertaining because he's going to be spinning like a fucking top.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see some shit released. They're gonna try to do whatever they can to distract from this. And like I think I said earlier, it wouldn't surprise me if he accidentally admits to a bunch of other shit in the process, trying to get away from this accidentally because he's grasping at anything. He is flailing with nothing working. Um, like it wouldn't
But
surprise me if
well,
like
he's done
he
that
ends up
before.
saying,
Yeah, I
"Oh,
did it, but it's no big deal. You'll say something
right."
like that.
Well, but like if, especially if there was something nefarious with the election, it wouldn't surprise me if he comes out and says just something in passing that he didn't even realize what he said and goes, well, I had Elon help me win or make it so I won the election for this or something stupid.
Or when he catches him in something like that, he'll say, "Well, Obama did it." That's what he always
Yeah.
does. Obama's
Well,
worse than me. I did it, but Obama did it worse.
yeah. Well, he already directed some Republicans at this dinner or meeting or whatever it was where they were saying, hey, if you get any tough questions, just tell them Obama cheated in the 2016 election.
Yeah, we care about what happened 9 years ago. All right, Eric, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. We are at that point. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it immensely. We got on a little late, and I appreciate you accommodating my situation. I was at my niece's birthday party, and I got home when I got home.
Well, thank you for having me. I love doing the podcast. I love sharing what I know and my opinions with everybody. Um, and for those looking for me, you can find me on TikTok or YouTube at AnalyticalIowan. I do have my name listed down here below me. If you're looking for me on the video podcast, you can go hunt me up. If you find me on one or the other spots, I do have a link tree that will get you to my other platform as well. Uh, so those are the places you can find me. Gonna have a lot to talk about in the coming days and weeks. It's only going to continue to get more and more interesting as he gets more and more desperate.
Absolutely. And I will tell the folks, and I will tell you that on tomorrow, on Thursday night, actually, on tonight, I'm going to do a live on TikTok, and we're going to, so if you're available, come on, and we'll be talking to a lot of folks, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot that needs to be said. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.